How did a dream honeymoon in paradise turn into a nightmare of unanswered questions and chilling revelations? Anni Dewani, a radiant young bride, had just celebrated her fairy tale wedding. She and her husband, Shrien Dewani, set out for South Africa, seeking adventure and romance. But within days, everything changed. Anni was found murdered in an abandoned taxi on the outskirts of Cape Town. What seemed like a random act of violence soon revealed cracks in the story. A story that ran deeper than anyone could have imagined. As police delved into the case, shocking secrets about her new husband began to emerge. Was this tragedy truly the work of strangers? Or did the answers lie closer to home? It was November 2010, the height of wedding season in Cape Town, South Africa. Known for its stunning coastlines, majestic mountains, and vibrant city life, Cape Town attracts travelers from all corners of the world. Anni Dewani and her husband, Shrien, had chosen this idyllic destination to celebrate their new life together. The city was alive with tourists exploring the bustling markets, sipping coffee at seaside cafes, and taking in the breathtaking views of Table Mountain against the clear skies. But as the sun began to dip below the horizon that day, a heavy rain rolled in, washing over the city and dimming its usually vibrant colors. The rain continued as evening settled in, casting a sense of quiet over the streets. Dark clouds loomed over Cape Town, and an unusual chill cut through the coastal air. The narrow roads grew slick, and lights from the city shimmered on the wet pavement. A hauntingly beautiful scene, but one that carried an unshakable sense of foreboding. For Anni and Shrien, it was supposed to be the start of a lifetime of happiness. But in the shadowed streets of this city, something sinister awaited, hidden in the very place they had come to celebrate their love. Anni was born and raised in the small town of Mariestad, Sweden, to a close-knit Indian family. From an early age, Anni was known for her lively spirit and her compassionate heart. She excelled academically, earning a degree in engineering, yet it was her warmth and kindness that truly defined her. Her family adored her, and she was a cherished daughter, sister, and friend. Her bright smile and love for life left an impact on everyone she met, and like many young women, she dreamed of a beautiful future, filled with love and happiness. When Anni met Shrien Dewani, a British businessman from Bristol, England, it seemed like destiny. Shrien was successful, managing a chain of care homes, and came from a wealthy family well known in their community. Tall, confident, and ambitious, he seemed to be everything Anni had been waiting for. Their romance blossomed quickly, and within a year, they were planning a grand wedding. Family and friends gathered from around the world to celebrate their union in a lavish ceremony in Mumbai, India. For Anni, it felt like the perfect start to her happily ever after. But beneath Shrien's polished exterior lay complexities that few around him truly understood. His reserved nature often left others guessing, and he guarded his personal life closely. The speed of their relationship, though romantic, raised subtle concerns among some who knew them. Anni, filled with love and hope, was ready to embrace a new life. She had trusted in the promise of a joyful future, believing she had found her partner in Shrien. Yet, as their honeymoon began, there were hints of a deeper story. A side of Shrien's life that would soon cast a shadow over the dreams Anni held dear. It was a quiet evening on November 13, 2010, when Anni and Shrien Dewani decided to step out to explore the local nightlife around Cape Town. Wanting a taste of the city's authentic culture, they requested their driver, Zola Tongo, to take them somewhere local and vibrant. They had been exploring Cape Town during the day and hoped to experience something beyond the typical tourist attractions. But as they ventured into the township of Gugulethu, the atmosphere shifted. The taxi wound through dimly lit streets, the sounds of distant music and nightlife fading into silence. Suddenly, without warning, the car came to an abrupt stop. Two armed men appeared, forcing the doors open, and within moments, they had commandeered the vehicle. Menacing voices filled the car, demanding valuables. Shrien and Anni clung to each other, trying to make sense of the chaos around them. Tension mounted as the men's demands escalated, targeting Shrien, who was forced to give up cash, watches, and whatever else he had on him. Then the hijackers turned their attention to Shrien directly. In a chilling twist, they ordered him out of the car. Confused and desperate, Shrien was thrown from the vehicle, landing on the side of the road as the taxi sped away into the night, with Anni still inside. She was alone with the hijackers, terrified, in a foreign land, with no one to protect her. Hours passed as Shrien frantically contacted authorities, pleading for help, his voice shaking with desperation. As dawn broke, police located the abandoned taxi. Inside, they found Anni, lifeless, slumped in the back seat with a single gunshot wound to her neck. What had begun as a joyful honeymoon ended in unthinkable tragedy. Anni's life was cut short in a place she had only come to celebrate, leaving a dark mystery for investigators to unravel. The questions were immediate and haunting. Was this a tragic encounter with crime, or was there something deeper that led to Anni's untimely death? As daylight cast its first rays over Cape Town, the South African Police Service quickly mobilized, treating Anni Dewani's murder as a top priority. Investigators arrived at the scene, scouring the abandoned taxi for any clues that might reveal the truth behind her tragic death. The gunshot wound to her neck suggested an execution-style killing, yet there were no immediate answers as to why a young tourist would be targeted in such a violent act. The first person police questioned was the taxi driver, Zola Tongo. His account described a chilling tale of a spontaneous hijacking gone horribly wrong. He told detectives that he had picked up the couple from their hotel earlier that evening, and that Shrien and Anni had asked to be taken to a local spot in Gugulethu. According to Tongo, their car had been intercepted by armed men, who quickly took control of the vehicle and forced Shrien out before driving away with Anni. His story seemed to align with Shrien's initial account, but as investigators pressed further, inconsistencies began to surface. During Shrien Dewani's questioning, police noted that he appeared visibly shaken and distressed. However, his version of events raised subtle red flags. There were gaps in his memory, unexplained hesitations, and vague details that made investigators question his story. Was it the shock of the night's trauma, or was there something more he wasn't sharing? When detectives dug deeper, they learned that Shrien had flown back to the United Kingdom, almost immediately after Anni's body was found. This swift departure, just after the tragic loss of his new wife, struck authorities as unusual. Meanwhile, as investigators continued piecing together the events, they obtained CCTV footage from the couple's hotel. The footage showed a brief, private conversation between Shrien and Tongo just hours before the hijacking. The interaction seemed routine at first, but under scrutiny, it sparked curiosity. Was there a reason for this exchange, or was it mere coincidence? The pressure on Zola Tongo mounted, and after hours of questioning, he made a stunning confession. He claimed that the hijacking was not a random crime, but in fact a staged event. According to Tongo, Shrien had approached him with a sinister proposition to arrange the murder of his new bride and make it look like a hijacking gone wrong. In return, Tongo alleged that Shrien had promised him a sum of money. Investigators were taken aback, faced with an entirely new and chilling possibility that the murder may have been orchestrated by the very person meant to protect Anni. This revelation shifted the investigation's focus entirely. What began as an apparent case of random violence now had the markings of a calculated crime, layered with deception. With Tongo's confession on record, police arrested two other men, Mziwa Madoda Kwabe and Solil Mnjeni, who were alleged to have carried out the fatal plan. Both men corroborated Tongo's story, describing Shrien's involvement in explicit detail. Despite these testimonies, critical pieces of evidence were still missing. No written contract, no direct communication linking Shrien to the hired men, only verbal confessions and allegations that Shrien vehemently denied. For detectives, the task was clear but daunting. They had to unravel a case where truth seemed obscured by shadows of deception. As conflicting stories and elusive details clouded the investigation, one question remained at the forefront. Was Anni Dewani's murder a tragic encounter with random violence, or was it part of a meticulously orchestrated plan? As detectives dug deeper into Shrien Dewani's life, shocking revelations began to surface. It started with whispers and rumors, allegations that, if true, would shift the case in a completely unexpected direction. Shrien's life, once seen as polished and respectable, began to unravel, exposing a hidden world that few knew about. Investigators uncovered details about Shrien's personal life that had remained concealed from the public eye. He was allegedly leading a double life, engaging in relationships that went against the image he presented to his family and friends. Evidence surfaced suggesting that he had sought companionship outside his marriage, with connections that painted a very different picture from the devoted husband his family believed him to be. But that wasn't all. Police also unearthed significant financial transactions, raising questions about possible motives. The Dewani family was well known and affluent, yet there were alleged business pressures and possible debts Shrien was facing, elements that could suggest financial motives behind the tragedy. These discoveries raised troubling questions. Could Anni's death have been orchestrated as a way to escape mounting issues back home? As detectives examined Shrien's connections to Zola Tongo and the hired men, the pieces began to align with Tongo's confession. Tongo claimed that Shrien had asked him to arrange the murder, promising payment to stage a hijacking. Phone records and surveillance footage hinted at clandestine meetings and secret conversations, further weaving Shrien into the story in ways that cast doubt on his innocence. The revelations turned what had appeared to be a random, tragic incident into something far more calculated. Friends, business partners, and even hidden affairs came to light, all casting dark shadows over the image Shrien had crafted. This wasn't just a story of love and loss. It was beginning to look like a case of betrayal, deceit, and a double life that ended in murder. As details of Anni Dewani's murder emerged, the story captivated the world. News outlets across South Africa, the United Kingdom, Sweden, and beyond covered the case extensively, sparking a media storm that quickly turned Shrien Dewani from grieving widower to prime suspect. People around the globe wanted answers. Was this a tragic robbery gone wrong, or was Shrien Dewani truly involved in his wife's death? The revelations about Shrien's alleged double life and the possibility of a financial motive only fueled public intrigue. Headlines speculated on his connections with hired men, recounting Zola Tongo's allegations that Shrien had orchestrated the murder for personal reasons. In the UK, public opinion was divided. Some believed Shrien was innocent, a man caught in a devastating turn of events, while others began to suspect that he was hiding a much darker truth. Under immense public pressure, South African authorities sought to bring Shrien Dewani back to Cape Town to face justice. The extradition process was complex and lengthy, involving legal teams from both South Africa and the United Kingdom. Shrien's defense argued that he was too psychologically fragile to stand trial abroad, citing depression and post-traumatic stress. But, after months of legal battles and intense public scrutiny, the UK court approved his extradition in April 2014. The world watched as he boarded a flight back to South Africa to answer the accusations that had haunted him for years. The trial that followed was nothing short of a spectacle. In the Cape Town High Court, prosecutors presented their case against Shrien Dewani, relying heavily on the testimonies of the three convicted accomplices, Zola Tongo, Ziwamadoda Kwabe, and Lili Minjeni. They detailed the alleged plan, claiming that Shrien had hired them to kill Anni in a staged hijacking. The prosecution argued that the attack was meticulously planned, pointing to CCTV footage, phone records, and financial transactions as evidence of Shrien's involvement. However, Shrien's defense was unwavering. His lawyers argued that Tongo and the others were unreliable witnesses who were attempting to shift the blame onto Shrien in exchange for reduced sentences. They painted him as a victim of circumstance, a man in love with his wife, devastated by her death, and falsely implicated by desperate criminals. The defense also highlighted alleged procedural errors and inconsistencies in the investigation. suggesting that police had rushed to find a scapegoat to appease public outcry. The trial was filled with shocking moments, from Tongo's harrowing recounts of the alleged plot to the intense cross-examinations by Shrien's defense team. Reporters in the courtroom documented every twist and turn, broadcasting it live to audiences worldwide. Anni's family, seated quietly through the proceedings, looked on as the trial reopened their wounds, forcing them to relive the pain of losing her in such a horrific way. As the weeks went on, the case grew increasingly complex. The lack of concrete forensic evidence linking Shrien directly to the crime left many doubting his guilt. Tongo's credibility was questioned, and without physical evidence tying Shrien to the planning, the prosecution struggled to prove beyond reasonable doubt that he had masterminded the murder. When the verdict finally arrived, the world held its breath. The judge ruled that there was insufficient evidence to convict Shrien Dewani of Anni's murder, and he was acquitted of all charges. Shrien returned to the UK, a free man, but the court of public opinion remained sharply divided. For some, the acquittal was a grave injustice. For others, it was a rightful conclusion to a case built on speculation and unreliable witnesses. Despite the legal outcome, the controversy surrounding the case never faded. To this day, debates continue, with many questioning whether justice was truly served. For Anni's family, the acquittal brought neither closure nor peace. The unanswered questions about her death continue to cast a shadow over their lives, leaving them and the world to wonder, what really happened to Anni Dewani on that fateful night? As the trial progressed and testimony after testimony was presented, the puzzle grew more complex. On one side were chilling allegations from Zola Tongo and the two other convicted accomplices, each claiming that Shrien Dewani had orchestrated the murder of his own wife Anni. They described an elaborate plan, one that seemed too intricate to dismiss. But with no forensic evidence linking Shrien directly to the crime and inconsistent witness statements, cracks began to show in the prosecution's case. Shrien's defense argued fiercely, painting him as a man tragically entangled in a nightmare not of his making. They questioned the credibility of Tongo and his accomplices, suggesting they were shifting blame to avoid harsher sentences. Meanwhile, Anni's family watched on, desperate for answers, as conflicting narratives filled the courtroom. Was Shrien Dewani a grieving husband pulled into a devastating tragedy, or was he hiding a far darker truth? Each day in court seemed to add more questions than answers. Was this love story simply ill-fated, or had Anni unwittingly walked into a deadly trap? With everything on the line and a worldwide audience watching, one question loomed larger than ever. Was Shrien Dewani truly innocent, or did the truth lie somewhere deep within the shadows of that fateful night? After months of speculation, media scrutiny, and countless hours of testimony, the final day of Shrien Dewani's trial arrived. The world watched as the judge delivered the much-anticipated verdict. With mounting evidence, but little that conclusively tied Shrien to Anni's murder, the judge ruled that there was insufficient proof to convict him. Shrien Dewani was acquitted of all charges, allowed to walk free, and returned to the United Kingdom shortly after. For Shrien, the verdict meant freedom. He expressed relief but maintained his innocence, claiming he had loved Anni and had been devastated by her death. But for Anni's family, the acquittal brought no comfort. Vinod Hindocha, Anni's father, spoke publicly, his voice filled with grief and frustration. "We came here to find justice for our daughter, but we leave with nothing," he said. The family had hoped the trial would provide answers, yet they were left with the same painful questions that had haunted them since Anni's tragic death. The public, too, was divided. For some, Shrien's acquittal was an injustice, a failure to hold someone accountable for Anni's death. Others viewed it as the right decision, the result of a case built on unreliable testimonies and circumstantial evidence. But as Shrien Dewani returned home, the questions surrounding that fateful night in Cape Town lingered. Anni's life was tragically cut short, and her memory remains with those who loved her. The case, though closed in court, left a void for her family and a mystery that may never be fully solved. For the world and for Anni's family, The verdict marked the end of a trial, but the search for truth and the ache for justice remained. For Annie's family, the pain did not end with the verdict. Her parents, Vinod and Nilam Hindocha, returned to Sweden with broken hearts and a sense of deep, unresolved grief. Their vibrant, loving daughter, who had been so full of dreams, was gone forever, her life cut short under circumstances that still remain clouded in mystery. Despite the trial's end, they have tirelessly campaigned for justice, hoping to keep Anni's memory alive and somehow to find peace. In the years that followed, the case left an indelible mark on the public consciousness. Annie's story became a haunting reminder of the dark secrets that can sometimes exist behind the facade of a seemingly perfect relationship. People around the world began to talk more openly about relationship red flags, warning signs that may go unnoticed in the rush of new love. The Dewani case underscored the importance of truly understanding a partner's past, sparking conversations about transparency, honesty, and the dangers that can sometimes lie beneath the surface. Beyond the emotional toll on Anni's family, the case also raised questions about international justice and media sensationalism. The global media coverage had turned the courtroom into a stage, and every detail of Shrien and Anni's relationship became a public spectacle. Many questioned whether the intense scrutiny had helped or hindered the pursuit of justice. Did the global spotlight contribute to a fair trial, or did it warp public perception and place undue pressure on all involved? For Anni's family, the impact of her loss is immeasurable, and they continue to honor her memory. Her story is a poignant reminder of the fragility of life and the sometimes hidden complexities in human relationships. Her family's quest for answers and the public's fascination with the case have turned Anni's tragic death into a lasting symbol of resilience, caution, and the pursuit of truth. Though justice in the courtroom may be final, the emotional scars endure, a reminder that for those left behind, the search for closure and understanding is often the hardest journey of all. Anni Dewani's story is one that stirs emotions and questions in equal measure. Was this the result of a tragic misunderstanding in a dangerous city, or did something far more calculated lie beneath the surface? Did justice truly prevail, or did the legal system leave Anni's family with more questions than answers? Anni's life and death remind us of the complexities that can hide within relationships, and the struggle for truth that often follows in the wake of tragedy. What do you think? Was justice served, or is there more to this story than we'll ever know? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you're captivated by stories of mystery, resilience, and the search for answers, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Join us every time as we explore more true crime cases and unravel the stories that keep us all wondering.